Okay, so now that I've added the Abraham's timeline, I added a chart that includes God's promises. Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel, Journal by Design. I'm excited to create my very first Bible journaling entry here on YouTube. Today, we are doing a deep dive on Abraham. But before we start, I want to share quickly what I used before getting into how I create my layouts. To save time, I've used these large index cards, which, by the way, I'm completely obsessed with. I use them for literally everything, but I'm using them or I use them to write out my notes on Abraham. So I'm sure you're asking, why journal when you've already written out good notes on Abraham? Well, good question. Like I previously stated, it saves time avoiding a super long video, and this is actually another way to retain the things I've read and learned in the Bible. But the cherry on top, I can rewrite my notes, creating a super fun and creative layout all in one space. Okay, so you're probably wondering where I got all this information. I mean, for a large index cards worth of notes on Abraham. So before we get started, I want to share some of the commentary and some of the resource books that I use to help me study characters, places, things, you name it. First up is Who's Who and Where's Where in the Bible. I love this book because it literally has every place you can possibly think of and person. Even people who barely have any information in the Bible, they'll have something in here. It may not be as much as you think of like Abraham, but to learn something about every character in the Bible, I love this book. And there's Abraham. This has about almost 4 pages of information on Abraham. Next, I can't say it enough, but in order to Bible journal, you need a really good Bible. I mean, that's where it all started, right? I suggest the Life Application Study Bible. I can't talk highly enough about it. It's such a good Bible. It includes notes that go deeper into God's Word as well as character profiles. This is the one that I use, and I'll show you here. Here is Abraham's character profile. And last but certainly not least, I suggest getting a good Bible dictionary. This dictionary comes in your Kindle, but I prefer books to be in my hand. I just love the feeling of books, physical books in my hand. But this dictionary is literally to me the GOAT. Not only does it have definitions of things that are listed in the Bible, jewelry, months. It also includes people and places. It's such a good resource find, and I highly suggest getting this dictionary. Here in this dictionary, I'll show you Abraham, Abraham's section. This is such a good buy. So before we get started, I just want to point out a few things. When I journal, at least on the left side of my journal, if you happen to see books underneath peek out while I'm journaling, it's just so I won't have to like it just gets kind of flat. I like to have something firm underneath as I go through my journal. So if you ever see two books peeking out while I'm going through this journal um entry, it's only because I just need something flat underneath. That's the only reason why I have these two books underneath. I've already mentioned, I've already pre written out my notes and did a little study. And we're just going to transport it into my Bible journaling, our Bible journal. So we have one space, one location, one beautiful journal with every study entry that we've done. And then I think that's it. So let's get started. So first things first, let's create our focal point. And I use this tool to create the little circle that everybody kind of knows me for. And this circle is where I locate my or indicate my topic. You see these little lines here. I like to put the circle in the center of my layout. So this focal point here is actually the center of my journal. I like dotted grid journals because it allows me to count the dots. Therefore, I'm able to get a accurate center of my journal, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and draw out my circle. And the only reason why I do like a bunch of lines is just I like the design of it. So that's the only reason why there's like just a lot of lines. It just looks, to me, it looks cool. Sometimes I like to see where the line is going to go before I actually do the circle. Okay, I like that too. And I think that's good. So, this Bible study is on Abraham. So, I like to put the topic again, like I said, in the center of this circle. This lets me know that the whole layout, the focal point is going to be whatever the topic is in here, and the topic is going to be Abraham. So, let's figure out a cute way to draw it out. I won't say too much as I draw it out. Also, I like to use a pencil beforehand and then go in with pen to make it permanent. Okay, so I decided to use stamps to write this out because my penmanship is not coming out the best. So we're gonna do Abraham, and I think I'm gonna put like a washi tape in the center to like actually write out Abraham. Let's see how that turns out. Okay, so this is not the best, and I'm tempted to do this over, but we're just gonna roll with it. So the next thing that I do is I like to write out where this character, in this particular case, Abraham, is first mentioned in the Bible, and I like to do it in the corner. So we're gonna write it out right here. I like to do it in pencil first. So I literally write out first mention. And in this case, we're going to actually do two first mentioned because you know that Abraham was originally named Abram and then God changed his name to Abraham. So we'll do first mentioned Abram and we'll put it in parentheses. Genesis 11:26. And then semicolon, and then we'll actually put Abraham in parentheses. And do Genesis 17:5. Then I like to use one of my mild liners and highlight the first mention in purple. So now that I've created my topic and where Abraham was first mentioned, the fun part is writing out all the interesting facts that I've learned while studying Abraham. Around here, you can write notes of saying like that he's the first great patriarch of ancient Israel. I'll mention his full story and where it's located and other places he's mentioned in the Bible. I'll write out where he grew up, his trek from going from Ur to Canaan, maybe what he did, which was a wealthy livestock owner, the key verse of his, of things that he might have said, where he lived, how when he died, just important facts or facts about Abraham that interest you. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Okay, so now that I've written all of my notes about Abraham, I do want to point out some things. So there are some words sometimes that I don't know what they mean. So I like to write out the note and then highlight the word. So in this case, he was the first patriarch of ancient Israel. I wasn't 100% sure what patriarch meant, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight patriarch. And then we're going to highlight the definition, which is over here. So, patriarch means the head of the father's house, the founder or ruler of a tribe, family, or clan, and the forefather of Israelites nation. So now I know that when I look at this layout and I see patriarch highlighted and I see another note highlighted in the same color, they go together. So now I know what patriarch means. I have another one that I really wasn't sure. I knew, but wasn't 100% sure, which is covenant. So we're going to highlight that in yellow. And then let's go ahead and highlight the definition, which is down here in this corner. So covenant is an agreement between two people or two groups that involves promises of the part of each to other. The Hebrew word of between us. That was a lot to say. I also want to highlight Abraham's part in this covenant. I just learned that covenant is between two people. So in this instance, this covenant is between God and Abraham. God's promise to Abraham, God promised that he and his descendants, he as an Abraham, would become a great nation. So that's God's part in this covenant. Abraham's part was circumcision, the Hebrew word for Beret Milah. So let's go ahead and highlight that as well. Now, when I look at this Bible study entry, I know that covenant, the definition, and Abraham's part in this covenant between God and Abraham. The next step that I like to do, but it's not a requirement, I like to put lines pointing out every topic or every note that correlates with the topic. Even though it already does that, I just like it just makes more sense in my head. What I mean is every note I like to just draw an arrow going back to the main topic, which is Abraham. So I like to use my circle maker or a ruler, and sometimes I like to do little fun arrows, but everything is pointing back to the main topic of Abraham. Okay, so now that you can visually see it, I hope it makes more sense. Every arrow is starting at the focal point, which is our topic, which is Abraham, and it goes to each note. I don't bother highlighting the highlighted definitions or notes that go together. As long as I put an arrow to the main topic, I know that the highlighted portions go together, if that makes sense. Now, let's go on to our next page. So on this side of the page, I kind of want to do a couple timelines, starting with sorry, I'm shuffling through getting my supplies together, but starting with Abraham's timeline, I learned through this, I guess, reading through his age and what he did, literally, I hate to say it, but at an old age, it made me realize that God's timing is perfect. So this is like a little reminder for myself at least, but I learned that we shouldn't try to force God's plan into action. Usually, when we try to do that, it leads to bitterness and strife. For Abraham's particular instance, think about Sarah and Hagar and their children and their relationship with Isaac and Ishmael. But we shouldn't also force the God's plan either, because usually it ends in disappointment, anger, strife. So God's timing is literally perfect. Okay, so I wanted to use these stamps, which I use pretty much all the time from Creative Worship Stamps over on Instagram. Her shop is linked in her bio. To decorate just a tad on this side of the page, and then I'll go into this next chart that I created. So, Abraham's story is full of promises and protection from God. In this chart here, I wanted to go over most of the promises that God or that I noticed within Abraham's story and list them out. So, for this chart, I put the event in which the promise happened, what the promise actually was from God, and where you find it in Genesis. Again, this is a chart just of God's promises through Abraham's story. And like I said, God is truly faithful. His story or Abraham's story is full of promises and protection. And even when Abraham tried to act in his own will and power, God still remained faithful in ensuring his promises came to pass, which it's all throughout Genesis. I don't know if I mentioned before, but I tend to write my layouts out, at least on the second part of my layout, in pencil, and then I go over in pen, just to make sure that at least when I'm making out these charts, I have room. I don't want to go in with pen immediately, just in case I mess up. I'm able to erase and then start again. Okay, so here is the completed layout. Again, this side is the page where I write all the topics or all the notes, I should say, about the topic of the layout. So for this instance, it's Abraham. So everything to do with Abraham. If I need to expound on a couple things, it will go on this side where he is first mentioned, goes here. And on this side, for this particular layout, I decided to add a couple of charts. So there's his timeline of age. So when he departed Haran, he was 75. Sarai dies. Abraham was 137, etc. Then I wanted to include some of God's promises. I noticed that in Abraham's story it is full of his promises, so I wanted to notate those. And then also up here, I wanted to write some of his relatives, some important relatives, especially his grandson Jacob, who was the father of Israel's 12 tribes. So I made sure I indicated the 12 tribes. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to share what you learned about Abraham in the comments below. Also, what did you think of this video? Have any questions? Need a more in-depth video of my Bible journaling process? Leave your constructive criticism and feedback in the comments below. Until next time, let's grow our faith creatively journaling through the Bible, growing a more intimate and genuine relationship with God. Bye, y'all.